Hey everyone, I'm back here again with another quick tip for all of you wonderful guitar playing people out there today. The tip that I have for you this time is, wherever possible, try to play bigger chords. What I mean by this is, if you have extra open notes, open strings that you could let ring through that might make your chords sound better, go for it. If you have extra bass notes that you could add to make your chords sound more full, and maybe repeat some of the tones that you're already doing in a lower octave, then by all means, go for it. I'll give you a few examples on things that will almost always make your chords sound better. So the first one that I want to point out are these bar chords or these power chords that have their root note on the A string. Let's take, for example, here we'll do this A string 5th fret regular power chord just like this, right? So what we can do to make this sound even fuller and better is we just take the same 5th fret and we just bar that across on the low E string as well. So if we remember our octave relationship, any note, you can find the lower octave of it by skipping a string and then skipping back another fret. See, so it makes this kind of shape here. This is the note that we want the lower octave of, and this is on the D string 7th fret. So we know that if we skip a string in between, it's going to be the E string. And then we just go back by 2 frets. We go 6, 5, and that's how we find the lower octave of any note. So you can see how that note that we're adding to this power chord is really just the higher note of the power chord in a lower octave. So harmonically, so music theory wise, the chord still functions just the same. It's just that we are putting one of the notes into the lower octave, which is causing like an alternate bass note sort of effect. Actually, in effect, what this is doing is it is changing our power chord into a second inversion power chord. If you don't know about chord inversions, I've made a previous video on the topic. It's kind of one of my older videos, so the camera and audio quality might not be as good as my recent stuff has been, but I did give an entire lesson about chord inversions. I will link it below in the description so you can go and check that out. And then obviously this concept isn't only for power chords, right? This also works just as well, if not better, for bar chords, because bar chords are usually better than power chords. They just have that extra step of harmony that the power chord omits. So it's the same concept basically, just you do it with an entire major or minor chord instead of a power chord. So let's take the same A string 5th fret, just this time we're going to do it as a minor bar chord. Pretty nice chord, but again, we can just easily add this lower note to it. And it makes a much nicer, fuller chord that has a lot more bass to it. So as a guitarist who performs solo a lot, I find it very useful to recognize these places where you can add in an extra low note and get extra fullness out of being just one guy who's a singular performer. Another way that you can add fullness to your chords is just to recognize what open notes are around the notes that you're fingering. Which ones of the open notes are also tones that occur inside of the chord, right? So we can take this 7th fret A string power chord, right? And then we can just add this lower open string too. So you'll see that that's the same note as the 7th fret, right? But you can also then safely assume that your high string is also going to be a note in the chord, right? And it also just so happens that the B string is going to be a note in this chord as well. So we can actually hit this 7th fret power chord and let all of those notes ring open. And they're all chord tones. I'll just give the quick disclaimer in case you're trying to play along with me right now. My guitars usually stay in a full step down, so if you're not producing the same notes that I am, then you're probably just tuned to standard tuning. And don't worry about it too much because these lessons all cross over, so you don't have to worry about playing the exact notes that I'm playing, just keep the techniques in mind. Then one last little thing before I go here Employing the same method that I did with the last chord, where I left extra open notes ringing through to support the chord because they were also chord tones, you can also do the same thing with tones that are not part of the chord. And in doing this, you will be creating some interesting new harmonies along with the chord without having to worry too much about how the music theory of it all works out. So this is a pretty good way to go if you're a beginner and you're just trying to get some more of your own unique tones out of the instrument to start with. So same thing as before, but let's just take the power chord on the 5th fret. You see that by adding in just those extra open strings, we create some kind of cool harmonies and cool overtones that go along with this main power chord. So this could be like a really nice bass for like a good finger-picking acoustic style song, right? You have the chord holding down the main chunk and meat of the harmony, and you have these extra high strings, these extra high open strings to create some kind of cool voices on top of that. Okay, and that's all for this time, folks. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I hope that was helpful, and I'll catch you in the next one. Have fun out there.